Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about Axon Server in the cloud, also known as the AxonIQ Cloud. I'm Yvonne. I am a senior developer at AxonIQ, and I will be giving this presentation to you together with my co-presenter, Sara Torrey.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sara Torrey. I'm one of the software developers here at AxonIQ, working on Axon Server in the cloud team, on the SaaS team. And I'm really happy to see everybody here. And we have our colleague Corrado with us to answer any questions you might have. So please don't hesitate to ask your questions during the webinar if you have them. At the end, we will also have some time to answer questions. So Yvonne, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Sara. So today we are going to cover these topics. The end goal is for you to be able to connect an application to the AxonIQ Cloud. But before you can do that, we need to get through some architectural patterns to be able to understand what Axon Server and AxonIQ Cloud is. So we are going to talk about CQRS, event sourcing, and DDD. Just the concepts, not the whole big picture, but just enough to understand Axon Server and AxonIQ Cloud, which is Axon Server in the cloud. After that, we are going to explain how you can connect the application to the AxonIQ Cloud, and we will give you a live demo. Questions in the end are, there is room for live questions, but if you have any questions during this presentation, you can just post them in the chat, like Sara already mentioned. So let's start with CQRS. CQRS is a microservice development pattern, and it's an alternative for CRUD. And why do we choose CQRS above CRUD? CRUD-based applications, the user interacts with those applications as a whole. But in a CQRS application, the command side and the query side are separated. And that is done because it makes the design of the applications easier, and it makes it more scalable and flexible. So how do we do that? What is CQRS? In this diagram, you see the client, and this client can send commands and queries to the system. It can send a command to the command model, and the command model handles the command and tries to update the state accordingly. If it cannot update the state, or there is some decision that it cannot update the state, it will just reject the command. On the other side, the client can do some queries and ask about the state of the system. So it can tell the query model, hey, give me all rooms that are available for me to book, for instance. So we do have two sides of the story here, but there is something missing, because how are we going to synchronize the command model, the query model, with the command model? If something is changed in the command model, we need to update the query model. And we do that by using the events. So events are very important in our diagram. So there is one other topic that we would like to discuss, and that is event sourcing and event streaming. It is a big difference if you do event sourcing or if you do event streaming. Let me first explain what event streaming is. You have service A and you have service B, and in the middle there is an event store. An event store is append only, so every time a new event is published, it will be appended to the event store. So service A will append events to the event store, and service B will read the event store, including the ones that service A created, and this is event streaming. Event sourcing is something different, and we don't need service B for that. Service A is still appending the events to the event store, but then it uses the same events to source the events to use it to build up its state again. So if service A gets a command and he needs to do something, and he needs to decide, can I do this, and can I publish an event? And it does so by recreating the state based upon the prior events. So it makes a decision based upon the prior events that it already has published, and that is event sourcing. So now Sara will take over for me and will tell you a little bit more about DDD.
So domain-driven design was introduced as a concept by Eric Evans back in 2003. So it's almost 20 years old, but in the recent years, it's becoming more and more popular because it has really some great options for designing applications. And it's important to notice that the domain-driven design actually revolves around the domain model, and it makes it the center of every application. So you should regard the domain model as the foundation of every DDD-centric application. And what you will notice is that a growth in complexity within the application is accounted for usually by a badly designed domain model. So it's very important to spend time and do a little bit of research when designing your models and your domain. And how are we going to do that? Well, that's the really important question. Well, first, we should start by understanding what a domain model actually is. So looking at domain, Eric defines it as a sphere of knowledge, influence, or activity. And it's a subject area to which the user applies the program, which is the domain of that software. So for example, we will look at an application a little bit later during our webinar, which is a hotel application. So looking at that, the hotel as a whole will be the domain of this application, for example. Now, looking at the domain model then, we can say that a model basically acts sort of like as a ubiquitous language, which is a language that's understandable within each team or within a company or within a group to help communicate between either the software developers and domain experts. So on the IT or the business side, we have to have that similar vocabulary and the language that is used. And the domain model really contains the concepts of the client's domain that are needed to solve a very specific problem. So not just the description of the software, but the entire problem which needs to be resolved. And the domain model never really contains the subjects or the concepts that the client doesn't care about. It's just a model. So only the selected aspects that are important to solve the client's problem have to be present in this domain model. Now, with that comes another concept, which is called the bounded context. And Martin Fowler actually has a really good explanation of what bounded contexts are. And he explains them as a central pattern in DDD, in domain-driven design. And it's the focus of DDD strategic design selection, which is all about dealing with large models and teams, because domain-driven design deals with large models by dividing them into different bounded contexts and being explicit about their interrelationships. So going back to that example of the hotel, you can now see that different aspects of that hotel application, for instance, can be looked at as different bounded contexts. For example, you can have account management, which is the application, and these are all can be separate applications working within the same system. So you can have an account management that takes care of managing your employees or services that you offer, rates, reviews online, social media, and that kind of thing. You can have another application that takes care of the booking for the rooms. It can be an online booking application. Then you can have another application taking care of your inventory, taking care of, understanding which rooms or venues are available at certain periods of time. And you can have a payment processing system that actually can either be within that same system, or you can even outsource any of these systems if you wish. But these bounded contexts are important to have to really make sure that we distinguish the different problems that you're trying to solve within each model. So I'll hand us back to Yvonne as she will go through this wonderful diagram that we have, which marries the CQRS and DDD and event sourcing together.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. So like she said, yeah, this is the complete overview of what we are achieving with Axon Framework applications and Axon Server. Um, you see, you still see the same pattern that you saw with CQS. So we do have a UI where you can send commands and queries. We do have a command handling and a query handling side, but now we also have event handling components. So what you can see that all the messages are coming back in this diagram. So you can send a command from the UI and the command will be handled in a command handling component. If the command succeeds and everything is okay, the command handling component will publish an event, and this event will be handled in an event handling component. And an event handling component can either update the state or update a projection or send a command back to the command handling component. Okay, now we are in this state, then I want you to do another thing. And it can also invoke third-party systems or send emails. In case the event handling component updates a projection, it can be a projection that is used by the query handling components, and that is read by the query handling components to answer a query that is done by the UI again, and that makes the whole circle round. So what you see is that DDD is coming back in the command handling component by describing the domain model with aggregate entities and value objects and a repository. But we also have that on the query handling side in our projections. There we also have aggregate entities and value objects. So this approach gives us a nice thing, which is location transparency. We can just send a command and we do not know who can handle the command, but the command is being handled. And it doesn't matter where the component is located. It's just, okay, you can handle this command. So that command handler will handle it. So if you are in a greenfield situation, you're not you don't need to start with a microservices landscape. You can do everything in just a monolith with all with nicely modules for the command and the query side, but still you can put everything in the same application. And later on, if the need arises, because of performance reasons or some components need more power than computing power than others, you can just extract those components. You can also do that because there is another team working on your application and you want to split the repositories. These are all valid reasons to extract components. And after you extracted components, you can, after a few years, you can extract even more and scale as needed. So now we are at Axon Server. Axon Server is a message broker for commands, events, and queries. It is a purpose-built event store, which means that it is an expert in appending events and reading all the events for a certain aggregate. And for sequential reading for an event processor. So legacy database solutions focus on CRUD operations, and they are less suitable to be used as an event store. But still, you can use a Postgres as an event store. But Axon Server is easy to use. You can just download the jar and start it without any configuration. That's why it's zero configuration, message routing, and event store. And this is the overview that you get if you have a 3-node cluster running and you have 3 applications connected to your Axon Server nodes. And what you see is there are 3 applications: the Cloud Console, a hotel booking application, and a billing application. And all these applications are connected to different Axon Server nodes. And that is because the contexts, which are the bounded contexts that Sara was talking about, are created on either all three of the nodes, or in the case of the hotel booking, there's just one context which is created on Axon Server Enterprise 2. And this way, all the event stores are separated by bounded context. So you have a billing context, you have a default context, and the booking at hotel context. And all these applications are publishing the events to the correct event store, and they can send messages over the buses to do a query, to send a command, and that way they can do their job. And when you click on an application detail tile, you can see that the Axon Server node that the application is connected to. You can see all the query handlers and the command handlers of that application, and also the event processors. And this is how that looks. So you can see the fully qualified class name of the commands and the queries. And for the queries, you can also see the response types, because you can have the same query, but different response types as well. You can subscribe to several response types. What you also can see here is the subscription query. You can see the number of subscriptions to a certain query, and you can see how many of them are active and how many updates there were for a certain subscription query. Then we have the event store in Axon Server, and there you can search for events in a specific context. You can use the query language to filter the events. You can adjust the query time window. You can search for snapshots. You can get some live updates, get the most recent or the just published events, and they will just appear in the screen. And you can get the newest events as fast as possible by following the leader. And it looks like this. So you can search for events and snapshots. You have a query time window. You can get live updates. You can read from the leader, which gives you the newest events. And you can here select the active context. In this case, it's T1 at test is the active context. And in this case, I will get all the events because my search bar is empty. You get all the events from the last hour. If you want to know what you can do here, you can click this link and it will provide you with some help on how to query your event store. So now it's up to Sara to tell
Thank
more
you,
about
Yvonne.
AxonIQ Cloud features.
So thank you. On AxonIQ Cloud, we have certain things that you can do very easily, and hopefully it's easy for everybody to navigate through the cloud application. And through the AxonIQ Cloud, you can create accounts for your various projects or teams. You can have workspaces. This is actually when it comes really handy if you have various applications working on and you want to have the same account. You can have various workspaces, and you can invite your colleagues or friends to come in and join different workspaces. So that's all done fairly easily. You can have a personal access token, which is really cool. You can look at the statistics page, which shows you all of the messages that you are sending and receiving. And if you are using paid contacts, for example, or paid portions of the cloud, you have to have a billing account, which then also gives you some more things to look at when you're looking at your statistics page, for instance. And then with that, you can check to see how many messages you're using and how is your billing being processed throughout the usage of the cloud. And finally, we're hoping to have this feature come live pretty soon. So cross your fingers that we can offer the private managed clusters. So you can have your privately owned nodes, and you can basically have more control over what you want to do within those clusters and your context and so forth. So going on, we can take a look at different parts of the cloud here in screenshots, and a little bit later, Yvonne will go through the actual cloud. So we'll go online and we'll go through all of these one more time. So if these kind of look a little bit weird, don't worry, we'll go online and show you exactly how it's done in real time. So in order to create an account, all you have to do is to go to the URL, which is console.cloud.axonic.io. And once that's open, you can see the page that's welcoming you to AxonIQ Cloud. You can go ahead and sign in with your either Google account or your GitHub account. And then from then, you need to put in some information about yourself. If you are with a company, or if you want to use it for a self project, that's completely fine too. So you would put in your basic information there. And then after that, you just have to basically agree to terms and conditions, and then you can go ahead and start with your cloud experience. So creating a workspace is very easy. On the top right corner of your page, you will see AxonIQ Cloud Console. Next to that, it says select a workspace. Once you click on that, it will pop up a window for you to put in the name of the workspace you want. The only thing is that this name has to be unique throughout your account. So if you have one workspace that says test, you cannot have another workspace with the same name test. You just have to make sure that they have different names, and it will reject it. So don't worry if you have similar names after having 10 different workspaces. If you have something that's the same name, it will tell you, hey, you can't have a same name workspace, pick something different. And from then you can actually invite your colleagues to join in different workspaces. And that part is fairly easy as well. You can go into your admin portion of the cloud. And as we go through the demo, you will see that it's on the bottom. You click on that and it will show you different options. You click invite, it will give you a URL that you can send to your coworkers, and that can be shared with various coworkers, and then they can join in your workspace and help you with the project. And once that's done, you can then go ahead and create a context. Once we have the private cluster option available as well, then you can choose that and then private your context within that cluster as well. But that's yet to come. And for the clusters, again, it's very easy. You choose your name and the region that you want to use. Currently, we do offer 2 regions, one in Europe and one in the US. We're hoping to have more regions available. If you have any specific requests that you want us to have other regions available in your area, please let us know, send us a feedback, and we would love to see those and help you out with those regions. Within the context window, then the next step would be to choose what kind of context you want to have. We have 3 different types at the moment. You can have a developer context, which retains your data for a 14-day period. After that, you no longer have access to that data. And so basically you have 14 days to play around and see if it's something that you're interested in. You can have a single node or multi-zone context types as well. It will show you the price ranges for each one, and depending on how many messages you use, of course, that price range varies a little bit. And once you have chosen a context, then you can bind your applications to that context. And that's also very easy, hopefully. You can name your application and choose the context that you want it to be bound to. And once that's said, the next point, it will give you the configuration to add to your application properties file. And you have 2 options. So one is the complete configuration that you see in the bottom. You save that into your application properties, and then it will bind the application to your context. Or if you want to run several instances of an application, you don't have to copy that whole configuration. You can just copy that top line, which just gives you the access token. Now, it's very, very important to keep this information somewhere safe, because once you close this window, it's no longer available to you. You can have a different access configuration, but this particular one will not be available to you. So make sure you save it somewhere safe. As I mentioned before, the statistics page is a very easy way of tracking what you're doing with in terms of the messages. You can see at the on the left, you have the context name. It will show you the command messages that are sent, the responses that you're receiving in your commands, the events that are stored, the events that are retrieved, and also with the queries that are sent and responded. And then at the end, you have a total number of messages, and it will show you also on the right side whether this context is paid or unpaid. And on the top right, you have options to pick from whether you want to have an hour to check these this context and the messages, or you can have longer period of times. You can even choose the billing period where these contexts are being used and these messages are sent and retrieved. To create a billing account, you do have to have some rights. So you have to be the owner or administrator of this account. If you were invited to a workspace by a colleague and you don't have the access to the admin page or admin properties, of course, you won't be able to create the billing account. But if this is your space and if you are assigned as an admin of a space, then you can create the billing account, and you do have to have the billing account in order to have the paid context. And that's very easy. You just put in your basic information, your credit card information, and you will receive your monthly invoices. And you do have the option of deleting certain spaces then, or certain contexts and so forth. And last but not least, this is the really great part. We do offer the personal access token that you can have. Again, this comes if you have the admin rights. You can go ahead to the admin part of the cloud, and you create an access token for your cloud API, and it will give you a JWT token that you can use to authenticate your application and basically track it as you go. And here's an example, a screenshot of where you can find that. And as I mentioned, once Yvonne goes through the demo of the application, which is coming up in a second, hopefully all of this would be a lot more clear. So you can take over, Yvonne, with the demo. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you, Sara. Let's go to the Axon Cloud Console and try to connect an Axon Framework application. So this is the start that Sara showed, and I'm going to sign in with my Google account. I already have an existing account, so I will start at the dashboard. And I will create a new workspace to show you how that works. I will create a workspace called Hotel, because we are in the hotel business. Oh, that one already exists, like Sara mentioned. Probably this one I can create. And now that I have created my workspace, I can create a context. And I will start by creating a context for the inventory app. So I will make an inventory context. I will select the region next to me, which is Belgium. I'm in the Netherlands, so that's easy. And I will create a free developer context. And now the inventory context is created. I will do the same for a booking, for the booking application in Belgium. And then that one is created as well. So you can see today at 16:29, I created two contexts. And now for my application to be able to connect to that context, I need to create some application bindings. And I have my inventory app, and that will be connected to the inventory context. And when I save it, you probably, here you can see the application token or the whole application configuration with the token in it. And I will copy that and I will paste that. No, not here. I will paste that in my IntelliJ here. I have my inventory application properties, and I will just paste it in my application properties. And then I can start my application inventory. And when I start my application, it is going to connect to Axon Server in the cloud. Let me this bigger so it's better. In the meantime, I can do something else because this takes a little bit longer because of screen sharing, perhaps. So I go back to the AxonIQ Cloud again. I close this one, and I'm going to also bind my booking application. Choose booking here and have another application properties. And if I put those in my application properties of the booking, let me see, let me put it down there, which is nicer. The hotel inventory app started. Now let me start the booking application. Here it is. Let me start it there. So now both applications are going to be connected to the Axon server in Axon Cloud. And it just talks to a gRPC proxy. So there's no further communication with the Cloud Console. So if I go back to my Cloud Console, I just close this one. And I can go to the dashboard, and now you can see that I got two applications running. One is the inventory application and one is the booking application. If we click on this tile, you can see the command handlers. For the inventory application, we only have 2 commands that can be handled and no queries. For the booking hotel, we do have event processors, and you can do some actions on them here. You can see that we are using the streaming event processor, and we only have 1 segment. For the command handlers, you can see all the commands and all the queries that can be sent to the booking application. So now you can see here the statistics page. The booking application did not send any or publish any events or send any commands, but as soon as that happens, these numbers will be updated. You can search the event store, but the event store is still empty because the booking did not do anything yet. This was the part that Sara was talking about. This is the part of the workspace where you can add some members. You can invite other people, and you can also delete it when you give it the correct name.
Yvonne, can I just interrupt 1 second? Would you mind going back to that setting? I forgot to mention something about the invite. Yep. So here, when you invite your members and you send that invitation to your colleagues, sorry, yeah. So this will pop up and you send it to your colleagues. But then when the colleague signs or clicks on this URL, they will be sent to the cloud application, and they don't have any roles at that time. And you're the person then who has to assign roles to your colleagues and the members of your team. And under the members, as Yvonne is showing you, then you can have the option of assigning them the admin role if you want them to have administrative rights to do certain things in your workspace, or if you want them to be developers or other roles that you can assign to them, like viewer and things like that. So once they join in, they're not going to have access to anything in cloud. They can only basically see the empty dashboard, and you then have to assign them a role for them to be able to access the other parts of the cloud. Sorry, I just forgot to mention that point. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Sara. And now, in the meantime, we got some events from the booking application. So now I can show the statistics page as well. And we can see that there were 67 commands being sent to from the booking hotel, and it got 67 commands back. There were 50 events stored in the event store, and there were 163 events retrieved. And that number is bigger because we are using event sourcing. So those 50 events are being read again when the same aggregate is built up again to recreate the state. And we did not do any queries. So the total number of messages at the moment is 347 messages. Okay, I think that is it for the connecting the applications. And the next thing that I would like to show is how to use the personal access token. We do have a Swagger, no, not this one. We do have Swagger implemented. So you can go to cloud.axonic.io/Swagger UI, and then you can see all the endpoints that we have opened up for you. And what you can do here is use your personal access token to retrieve a JWT token, so you can just communicate with all the endpoints that we have opened up. And you go to the profile for that. So in the profile, you have this menu, personal access token, and you can just generate a person access token. And this will just give you a new token. And with this token, you can get a JWT token in return if you go to the authentication API. So I can try that out. And then you have to use your email address. And you can paste the token here. And as a result, you will get the JWT token. And you can use that token to authorize yourself. It is a bearer token, and you just paste the JWT token here. And now you can do anything with Swagger or a client application or CLI. And you can do everything that we can do with the front end as well. For instance, to create a space, I can do that by just invoking this endpoint. I name it pet, for instance, and when I execute this command, I get 200 OK back, and I can get all spaces. And here you can see all the spaces that were created. And because I'm an Axonic admin, I see a little bit more, but still you can use this either within another client application or in a script. You can just create context or create application bindings and use those tokens. And yeah, that was what I wanted to show you, how you can use the personal access token. And then there's one more thing, which is also nice to know, is that we do have an initializer application. So, sorry, an application initializer. If you want to start with building an Axonic or an Axon Framework application from scratch, you can use the initializer. And we also integrated it with the cloud. So I want to bind a new application initializer, in this case, to my inventory context. And when I save it, I can then choose not to copy the configuration, only need to copy the application token. And then instead of closing this window, I can generate the app, which sends you to start.axonic.io. And this is our new initializer, which you can download. And then you can see that it's going to connect to this context. And the only thing then you need to fill in then is the personal access token in the application .properties. Let me show you how that looks like. I'm not going to download it because it takes too much time, but this is something that you get from the initializer. So you get all those properties and you need to paste in the token, and then you can start developing a new Axon framework application and connect it to the cloud. And this is all I wanted to share with you about AxonIQ Cloud. Let me go back to the presentation. No, not that one. And then, are there any questions about this whole story?
Just a quick disclaimer to everybody. I think I had a typo in one of the slides there. The URL for the cloud is just cloud.axonic.io. I think I had included the console. You don't need the console. Sorry about that.
Are there no questions?
I have a question, Yvonne, if you have access to Axon Server, just in case folks want to kind of see the process on Axon Server dashboard. Do you mind showing that as well, if you can? If not, sorry,
No,
I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I don't have that running at the moment because I wanted to have the least amount of processors running on my machine.
No worries, no worries.
So
yeah, so we do have, okay, great. Thank you, Corrado, for yeah, but if anybody does have access to the Axon Server dashboard, it's really, really easy. You can just see Cloud running there as well, or your other applications.
Okay, if there are no questions, then I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would like to thank Sara and Corrado for helping me out here. And hope to see you next time.
Thank you. And if anybody joined in late, this is recorded and will be sent to you. So no worries about anything. And we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Corrado. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.